Okay, we're off and running again. Um, you folks really have done a very good job with poetry so far. I know that for many of you, it is not something that you commonly read, and yet your comments on it were very, very well put together. You found a certain way to relate to it, a way to tell about it, a way to make it personal. Okay, and that is so important. Now, again, with narrative poems, they tell a story, and everybody did a nice job of looking into how particular poems told a story for them and why you found those kinds of poems interesting for you. Okay, not just the story, but maybe the whole approach. For some of you, it was just the story or how much fun the story was. Again, as we're considering poetry this week, keep in mind that poetry was made to be heard. So your best bet, if you don't have poems that you can hear, is to read the poems out loud, or at least out loud to yourself. But even reading them just plain out loud is a good way to make them more meaningful. And read the poems by the punctuation, not line by line, as you did, when you were a kid in school. Okay, so poetry, again, a way of relating ideas, a way of capsulizing ideas and giving you ideas that can explode. Okay, now we talked about narrative poems, poems that tell us a story. This week we're going to talk about lyric poems. Lyric poems may tell a story, but the big thing is lyric poems capture emotion. Lyric poems crystallize emotion, and lyric poems make emotion subjective. A lyric poem shows feeling that that an idea means to a particular author. Is it important that you feel exactly the same way the author did? No. Is it important that you find exactly what the author meant? No. We dealt with some of these ideas last week. Again, a lyric poem is a poem that delves into the emotion of the author and the subjectivity of the author. We find personal feelings of the author coming through. Okay, I'm going to read one or two poems to you, but you need pencil and paper, pen and paper, to write down the names of poems that I will want you to choose from when you write your comments this week. I'll give you the names of poems and the page numbers that they're on, as I did last week. Okay, so let me read you a poem that probably all of you have heard before, but it's a poem that just captures so much emotion. In this poem, we really do have a narrator, and so the narrator plays the same role in the poem as the narrator does in the short story. It's not necessarily the poet, it's the narrator whose emotion, ideas, and subjectivity we're seeing in the poem. Okay? So the name of this first poem is one, again, that you've heard before. The name of the poem is Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. And somebody, I might have been Christina, talked about, in fact, how this is her favorite poem. But anyway, the poem goes like this. It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. Okay, so that poem is Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe, and you can feel the emotion in that poem. It is so strong, it is so powerful, it is put forth to us with such subjectivity. You can actually feel it in the poet. Okay, and so there's a poem for you to talk about, and you can, if you want to, and you can talk about the different things that are parts of that poem. Another poem that I wanted to share with you was a poem by Walt Whitman, who had great feeling for Abraham Lincoln. As you know, Abraham Lincoln was the poet during the Civil War, during the American Civil War. And immediately after the Civil War, within a week, Lincoln was assassinated. The Civil War had just ended, and Lincoln was assassinated. Walt Whitman had great feeling for Lincoln, and so he was personally hurt. He felt great hurt when Lincoln was killed. You're all aware, you've heard the term the ship of state, okay? The country put together, viewed as a ship kind of thing. And so Whitman plays upon that kind of image in creating his poem, "O Captain, My Captain." And, of course, Abraham Lincoln, the President of the United States, was the captain that he is referring to here. And again, he was grievously hurt, really felt the pain in Lincoln's death. And so he wrote the poem, "O Captain, My Captain." Okay. "O Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. Our ship has weathered every wreck, the prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting. Will follow wise the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh heart, 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 oh the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen, cold, and dead. O Captain, my Captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for you the flag is flung, for you the bugle trills, for you bouquets and ribbon wreaths, for you their faces, for you bouquets and ribbon wreaths, for you the shores are crowding, for you they call, the swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, Captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head. It is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead. My captain does not answer, his lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm, he has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored, safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip, the victor ship comes in with object won. Rejoice, O bells, and sing, rejoice, O shores, and sing, O bells, while I, with mournful tread, walk the deck my captain lies, fallen, cold, and dead. Sorry for the little miscues there. I know that poem by heart, but it's been a long time. But anyway, you can feel the sense of loss, the sense of victory from the war, but the sense of loss for Walt Whitman in that poem, "O Captain, My Captain." So that's a poem that you might consider. And here's the other poems that I wanted you to think about or read through. Walt Whitman also wrote "Song to the Open Road." It's on page 735. And there are some traditional love poems that are really pretty touching. Elizabeth Barrett Browning wrote "How Do I Love Thee" on page 977. Anne Bradford wrote "To My Dear and Loving Husband." Oh, I didn't write down the page. You can look it up yourself. On page 768, there's the Dylan Thomas poem, "Do Not Go Softly Into That Good Night." On page 603, there's the Randall Jarrett poem, The Death of the Turret Ball Gunner. The Robert Frost poem is on 887, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening. Emily Dickinson wrote a poem, A Bird Came Down the Walk, on page 710. There's the Tennyson poem, Ulysses, a great poem, chock filled with emotion, on page 1054. And you already talked about Edward Arlington Robinson's poem, Richard Cory. Many of you wrote about that poem, but you might look at that poem also as a lyric poem on 685. Okay, so those are some other poems that you can look at, and I'll give you the written assignment similar to what last week's poem was. But anyway, that's where you should start from. Lyric poetry, all about feeling, all about emotion, all about subjectivity. Talk to you soon.